It's that magical time of the year again in the life of every audiology student getting ready to apply for externship. And because my students have been asking me so much lately, I'm going to go over some common questions that you might get asked during your externship interviews. First one, I feel like it's probably a pretty obvious one that you're going to get asked not only in externship interviews, but job interviews later on. What are your strengths and weaknesses as a clinician? Be honest about it. If you're not doing very well or don't have a lot of experience in specific areas, don't try to lie your way through it. They will know. Say something to the effect of, I haven't had a whole lot of chances of being in pediatric rotations, but I'm really hoping with this placement that I might get that opportunity. Just be honest. They want to see honesty and they want to see that desire to learn. Another question that I've been seeing pop up a little bit more lately, what type of supervision do you enjoy or do you expect as a student during your externship? Some people like to be micromanaged or have some people sit over their shoulder to tell them what they're messing up and what they don't. Some people this puts them in a shell and they don't want to really come out of that. But if you have a preference or a style that you've noticed helps you learn better, please be open and tell the person interviewing you that, because it's only going to help your experience and they may really, really want you and shape the way that they supervise around helping you. An odd one I've been seeing lately, and it has been asked me in a job interview before, is if you could be any type of animal, what type of animal would you be and why? This kind of question is gauged on your personality depending on what type of things you like doing and what kind of person you are in general. So, for example, if you say elephant, maybe you want to be a leader or something. If you're some type of bird, you want to oversee everything. It's just weird little quirks like that. So really put some thought into it and really have a good way to answer that question in the event that you get asked. It's very slim, it may, but it's been popping up more and more as of late. A lot of students freak out about it, but audiology specific questions. You may get asked questions about certain cases and stuff inside of your interviews, and it's not that they're trying to stump you. Most of the time they're just trying to gauge what your knowledge set is. One that I've heard recently is in the event that a person comes in and has had chronic ear infections and a lot of fluid in their middle ear, what type of temp would you expect them to have? Things like that. If somebody had eustachian tube dysfunction, what type of temp would you expect in that instance? Just have an idea. You don't have to be super specific with things, but just have a general idea of how you would expect certain cases to flow in case management. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Be honest about it. If you have no idea, say I haven't really put a lot of thought into it. But if you have a goal to, for example, in my instance, work on a cochlear implant team, a very specific thing at a medical center or a private practice, say those kind of things, it may not exclude you from an interview by any means. It just may, like I said before, may shape where a preceptor leads your training to try to help you grow as a clinician and as a person. What kind of stuff do you like to do outside of audiology? Most of the time, if you get an interview at a place, they must have liked your resume and what you've done to this point to actually offer you an interview. But they also want to get a kind of gauge of your personality too, to see if they can spend 8 hours a day with you. I have seen many people go into these things super serious, super laser focused on the job itself, which is fantastic, but they don't really show their personality anyway. And it's end up hindering them in getting a job placement or an externship just because they don't really show who they are as a person. These people have to spend 8 hours a day with you minimum. So they want to know that the person they're going to spend that time with is somebody that they have a meshed personality with or they can enjoy working with over time. What type of experiences do you have? If you want to specialize in something later on like vestibular or cochlear implants, pediatrics, that is fantastic. But you want to make sure that you tailor your training in a very broad sense. You can learn the specialty stuff later, or you can learn even more about it during your externship process. But the core fundamentals of being an audiologist involve general audiology and diagnostics. So they want to know that you have good diagnostic experience. So while it is great to talk about these specialty things, make sure that you show them you have experience in the diagnostic realm as well. Conflict, that thing that nobody ever wants to talk about, and that's okay. You may get asked about this, if not during your externship interviews, most definitely during a job interview. They'll always give you a scenario such as, in the event that a coworker and you have a disagreement, How would you go about solving that conflict? Well, you have to come up with your own answer. I definitely can't give you one like for you. In my own personal experience, I try to work it out with the person first. And if I have exhausted all avenues in that realm, then maybe go talk to my supervisor. But you always want to start with the person that you actually have the conflict with first. Are you accommodating for patient issues? What I mean by that, let's just say hypothetically a patient shows up 15 to 20 minutes late after a patient appointment is supposed to start. What do you do in those situations? Do you take the appointment and put yourself behind, or you tell the patient to reschedule? I want you to think about very deeply how you want to answer that question. That is one of those tricky things to walk. I understand following a schedule, but you also got to realize where patients are coming from at that instance. I personally used to have an issue with this. One of my supervisors saw how frustrated I got about it and recommended a book to me called The Boy Who Was Raised as a Dog, and it has completely shaped the way that I feel about what patients go through getting to their appointments. So think about how you would answer that. Personally, the weirdest version of this question I ever got asked was by a practice in Alaska, actually, who asked, last week, for example, we had a patient flying in for their appointment because planes are more common than cars up there, and a volcano erupted, and the smoke and ash prevented them from getting to their appointment. How have you ever experienced anything like that? To which I laughed and said, have I ever experienced a volcano preventing a patient from showing up to their appointment? No. And the person asking the question laughed and said, yeah, I probably shouldn't have asked it that way. And I said, but if you're asking if I'm accommodating for issues the patient's going through, 100%, we can work through something. These are just a few of the questions. There's definitely going to be more, and there's some that are going to be more in depth than what I was mentioning earlier. Be open to them. Try to have an idea of how you would answer questions like I mentioned, and be able to think on the fly for things that I didn't. One thing that you might get asked is about constructive criticism and how you handle that. Be able to shape an answer around that. This process is stressful, getting an externship. I completely understand. Trust me, I've been there before myself. But just take a deep breath. Know that you will get through it. If you ever have any questions about anything at all, or ideas, or need ideas of how to get through this kind of situation, feel free to reach out. I'll be more than happy to help in any way I can. But just take your time, prepare yourself, practice with classmates, practice with parents, family members. Just try to prepare yourself for what a interview for an externship may be like. So I hope this has helped in some way. I hope you get all the externships that you're applying for and the ones that you really, really wanted. But if you need anything at all, please let me know. Have a good one.